Incredible. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Cool Quest Curiosities, or CQCs, we like to call it around here. This is Session 0, Episode 1, all about 3D printing. So, why Session 1? Didn't we already make a video? Yes, we did, but that first one was before Session 0. So this is our first video of the official Session 0 series. So what is Session 0? Session 0 in gaming is the before you go on the campaign, before you play the long game. It's getting to set the expectation and getting to know a little bit about the world and about the campaign that you're going to be playing in. So that's what this series is going to be. It's just going to be touching on the things that we are then going to deep dive into on our main quest, and we'll go on all these little side quests and we'll talk about all kinds of fun things. But 3D printing, I promise, is a deep rabbit hole that we will do entire series on, but this is just our Session 0 video on 3D printing. And now the inspiration of this came from our first commenter. Our first commenter from our last video, at Ty the Sound Guy, jumped in and introduced himself and mentioned that he wanted to learn a little bit about 3D printing. So that just seemed like a perfect place to start. So at Ty the Sound Guy, thank you so much for jumping in and commenting and introducing yourself. This video is definitely for you. And for the rest of you, please, this is a great time to take a second and hit that like and subscribe and start jumping into the comments and join our adventuring party. And let's go on this quest together. So with that being said, let's jump into this episode and talk about 3D printing. So what is 3D printing? At its core, 3D printing is just taking a digital file and turning it into a physical object using a 3D printer. Unlike a lathe or a CNC machine that takes a chunk of raw material and grinds some away from it to leave you with an object, 3D printing literally builds the object from the raw material. It will take a material like the FDM printer that I'm going to show you back here and melts down a raw material and then builds it layer by layer until you have your physical object. So that building layer by layer, that is true to all the different kinds of printers. 3D printing is really a building by layer, and the different kinds of printers just do it in a different way. But that concept of just building in layers is crucial because you'll see that in no matter what printer you're using. So let me actually show you a digital representation of that layering so you can kind of see. Now this is going to be a digital file for an FDM print, which is a melting down and squirting in. Imagine a hot glue gun, and a hot glue gun that is just can follow directions and just squirt hot glue down and then move up a little bit and squirt some more hot glue down and move up a little bit and squirt some more hot glue down until it just starts building an object out of melted hot glue that as it cools, it hardens again, right? And then you have a physical object that you've built by just layering hot glue. That was how it was described to me, and that's just always made sense to me. But I want to show you this in a digital way, and then I'm going to show you this exact digital thing that I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you it actually physically printing on the printer as well. So then hopefully, the concept of what is happening should really click for you. So here it is. Here's a digital file. Now I know that this looks like something that an engineer would be using or designing in an AutoCAD program, but I promise this is just a visual in the program that literally comes with the 3D printer, and most of the stuff that you're going to be printing will already be designed for you. Simply download a digital file, put it in the program that you're looking at, tell it to turn it into the format that the printer wants, and then you put it on a flash drive, plug it into the printer, and hit print, and there it is. Now, yes, of course, there's plenty more steps and lots more tweaking and customization you can do, but to the core, that's it. I'm going to take this digital file and put it on a thumb drive at some point and put it on my printer and hit play, and that's it. But now back to that layering. So this is all of the layers built up. This is a preview of what every single layer looks like. Now don't worry about the colors. The colors just show different angles and different layers and all that stuff. But this is 103 layers. It takes 103 layers of squirted out melted plastic to make this object. So I've got a slide bar over here I'm going to grab, and I'm going to pull this down to about layer 6. I'm going to do this kind of fast, and then we'll build it back up slower. But you can see we start going down through the layers. Now we're down, we're actually at layer 4. This is like one of the very base layers. It's just the very bottom of it. That's literally just a solid layer all the way through. That's all that yellow is all melted plastic. And then as we build up, we start going layer 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And now you can start seeing like in between here is infill, because it doesn't just print an entire like hard block of something. There's actually a lot of negative space in here. So we don't waste a bunch of filament. It's a lot lighter that way, but that's all infill that you see there. And all these lines again are just, it has to go through this entire layer of printing this entire layer. And then the hot end, the nozzle where the hot plastic is coming out, will raise up by a layer, and it'll do the whole thing all over again. And then it'll raise up and it'll do it all over again. Now I'm going to show you an animation where you can actually see that hot end moving. So that's what the hot end. Now it goes a little slower than this. It's pretty quick when it prints, but this is an animation of what the hot end is doing. That's the hot end there squeezing out melted plastic. When you see a colored line coming out there, that's where melted plastic is going to go. Now it's doing that infill that I was talking about, and it'll do this entire layer of just little lines of plastic. And then when it's done with this layer, it's going to raise up to the next layer. It's on layer 11 right now. So when it gets done with layer 11, it'll raise up to layer 12, and it'll start passing over all these same spots on layer 12 and just adhering the next layer to this one, and eventually just builds up to an object. So I'm going to go back to the slider again here, and I'm going to go through those layers. Okay, we're up into our 20s now, up into our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70, 80, 90, 103, and there's our entire object. So that's what that looks like. That's what that layering is. So two different kinds of printers. There's an FDM printer, which stands for fused deposition modeling. It's fusing those layers one on top of the other. And that's what we looked at right there. That's fused deposition modeling, or FDM printing. It's a little bit more forgiving. It's a little less cleanup. It's not as messy. It's good for bigger, stronger things. You can really kind of, again, play with that infill. If you have a lot of infill, it's going to be really rigid and strong, but a little heavier. You can make it a little bit lighter or weaker. It just depends on what you're printing. But it's good for all kinds of stuff. Like you can do terrain for your games. You can do larger dice towers. This one even has some magnets that I put in it so things stick together. You can do practical things for around the house, like little battery caddies, or just toys and little fidgets for your kids. I mean, it really ends up just becoming like a little production machine. They're little workhorses. So then you've got your resin printing, and resin printing is different in the way that it's less hot glue gunny. It's actually a vat of liquid resin that gets hardened layer by layer using UV light that cures the resin, but it still does it in layers. It's just they're so much smaller, and something that might be 100 layers with FDM could print in 1,000 layers with resin. So because it's 1,000 layers, it can carve out those details, or build those details with so much finer detail as it goes. So it's great for doing things like your minis, your custom minis, your not so mini minis. You can still do kind of big stuff on a resin printer, but you get all that really great detail using the resin printer. If you want to do more detailed terrain, and you want to get all those cool little details and everything, it's going to take paint really well. You're going to want to use a resin printer. But resin printers are a little bit more messy because it is that liquid resin. It gets kind of sticky. It can get on things. There's some fumes you have to deal with a little bit. The prints themselves are a little bit more brittle than the FDM printing. So one isn't necessarily better than the other. They're both just designed for different things, really. So let's go ahead and look at my setup. Let me show you what we've got going on over here. So real quick, I'm going to go ahead and just turn on another light that's behind me. It's the one that I turn off when I make videos, so it's not giving me a nice little halo behind me, the angel that I am. But let me turn on this light, and then we'll turn around and we'll look at my setup. Okay, there's our extra light. Move this terrain and come with me. That's still me. There it is. Okay, there's my setup. It's not fancy. There's two printers. I'll show you what each of them are. There is no warehouse. There's no extra, it's not even extra room in the house. It's just in my office, a couple of printers on a sturdy coffee table. And these are budget printers, by the way. These are nothing expensive by any means. So here's the FDM printer. That's the one that's printing away right there. You can see the spool of filament on the top, like we just looked at, and you can see it feeding down into what is called the hot end, and it is squeezing out and building that exact same model that we were looking at before, layer by layer. Does that look familiar? Does that look like what we... Let's see if I can even go down below. It's really hard to see, but there is the hot end making its passes and squeezing out filament, just like we saw. Now, this is the resin printer. So the resin printer, I don't have anything printing on right now, but like I talked about, there's a vat, and this is where the liquid, you get a bottle of liquid resin, and the liquid resin goes in that vat, and then there's a screen down below, and it's just a screen that projects a UV light. And when it projects a UV light on the resin in the vat, it will cure that layer of resin wherever it needs to. It's got, I mean, it's a screen, so the entire thing doesn't light up, just the spots where it needs to cure. And it cures on this, the build plate. So on your FDM printer, your build plate is here. It's building on the build plate and building up. Where the resin printer, it's actually going to adhere and cure the resin on the plate, and the plate is going to rise up a little bit. Rather than the hot end rising up, the build plate rises up and it cures the next layer. And then it rises up a little bit more and then it cures the next layer. Rises up a little bit more and cures the next layer. And that's how the resin printer starts. And this over here, that's just a wash station. You actually wash it in like an alcohol bath and then you wash it off in some water. So again, a little bit more cleanup, a little bit more involved with that process. But that is what the resin printer looks like. So again, this is my setup. These are budget printers. This is a Creality Ender 3 V2, and that's an Anycubic Mono 4K. And I got those as budget printers. Let me turn my light back off. And they were my starter printers. I've done minimal upgrades to them. Now, upgrading and modding is definitely another really awesome part of the hobby, but stock out of the box, I've used these for a very long time, and they have just been workhorses, and you get to sort of know what kind of printing you're doing and where your hangups and your headaches are, and then you can kind of mod from there and get different hot ends and different build plates that are made out of different things to be able to get your print, like just, it's just another really fun part of the hobby. I mean, it's another thing that we could do in the series is when we get more into 3D printing, we can do modding 3D printers is completely something we can get into. So now let's talk about budget versus pro printers. People ask all the time, well, what is, why go cheap versus, going something expensive, and what is the difference? And the honest answer is, if you're paying for a more expensive printer, it's not that you're paying for getting better prints, you're paying for less headaches. At least as far as I'm concerned. Now, with a budget printer like I had back here, there's a little bit more of a learning curve. There's a lot more tinkering that happens with it. Learning the settings, you have to learn about the printer and really how to dial it in to get the most out of the printer, and what settings you need to use to either make your prints better or more detailed, or to troubleshoot when something goes wrong. These are also the printers that are best for customizing and modding. They're literally meant and made to take apart and put on different custom parts that are honestly also pretty cheap. And there's even like little additions that you can 3D print, little shelves to go on your 3D printer. But those budget printers are definitely made to be able to customize and upgrade. Where versus a pro printer, what are you getting out of a pro printer? So pro printer, you're getting more reliability, speed, consistency. The printer is going to have a lot more automation. It's going to feel a little bit more plug and play. But to be honest, I think that there's a lot of value in really understanding how the 3D printer works and how all the settings are going to affect your print positively and negatively. Knowing just makes you better at anything you do. But I have played with some of the more expensive printers, and I mean, I admit they are awesome. They're incredible. It gives you more functionality, like being able to print in multiple colors without having to, on the fly, change out spool. You can do it on these budget printers, but it's not easy. And the bigger printers allow you to do that. And they also take out some of the mundane tasks, like having to manually level the bed, because it does have to be level. Otherwise, it's going to print wonky, right? The more expensive printers, it'll do that for you. So they're awesome, but I still say start with budget because the budget printers are so cheap these days. It's a great place to start to get to learn about 3D printing and then work your way up. So again, the Ender 3 V2, any of the Ender products are awesome. And then again, the Anycubic Photon Mono 4K, they're both really at this point not the newest, brightest, shiny penny, but because of that, they're even cheaper. And I will put a couple links, my affiliate links, in the description and down in the comments. So if you guys want, again, that's a great place to start. I'll even put a link to one of my favorite, more expensive ones. The Bamboo series are awesome printers that are just, I mean, you will literally get home, throw a digital file on a card, plug it in, hit play, and you don't have to worry about the rest. But you're not going to learn as much, but they're fun, and I'm going to go ahead and put that link down there for you as well. So all my affiliate links you can find down below to check out. So with all that, this is again just the surface level introduction. We're absolutely coming back to 3D printing, fixes, failures, upgrades, projects, all of it. If you're curious about 3D printing, tell me what you want to see next. Do you want to see more about resin, more about FDM? Do you want to see about troubleshooting? Do you want to see beginner mistakes, costs? At some point we'll start a whole series on just 3D printing. So we're going to leave it there. But trust me, 3D printing is a deep rabbit hole. This session 0 is built by the party, by the community, by you. So jump down in those comments like Ty the Sound Guy did and tell me what you guys want to see. And we will see you next time on CQC. Now, I think I'm going to go ahead and start me a print on the resin printer because it's too quiet and my printers are going nonstop all the time. So again, thank you. Love you guys, and we'll see you next time.